are back, and we're going to be doing another episode on something that we have chatted about a little bit before, but we'll be doing a little bit of a different angle on it. But as always, I'm Christoph. Paul's here too, kind of.
Hello. Yeah, we're both here this week. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for listening. We've talked about, in particular, mental health in the past. Actually, let me turn up my microphone here a little bit. There we go. So we've talked about mental health in the past, and we wanted to address this week was like how, as far as mental health goes, what are our strategies, or what have we seen people do in order to get through transition and plans, um, going in the direction, because you can't put on muscle and take off fat necessarily at the same time. There are ways to do it, illegally, but legally and naturally, there's no way to do it. So going from one way of putting on fat and putting on muscle, and then going in the direction of taking off fat, but also losing some muscle, how do you swap from one mentally to the other mentally, is an issue a lot of guys face and a lot of women face as well, because there's always a relationship there between, seeing progress in the direction that you want to go in, but then having to switch it because you've gone far enough, or you needed to change up the plan, something like that. And this kind of originated from me coming out of prep, me coming out of hitting shows, to now putting on weight and putting on size, which is fun. And I'm liking the food, I'm liking the training and all of that. But it is hard seeing definition disappear over time, and gaining some fat and all of that. I haven't gained a ton, but it's hard going from striations and veins and stuff like that to less and less veins, less and less striations, and especially for me, more so more fat covering up my midsection, and more so fat coming into my love handles. For me, my legs and my arms have held definition, but it's really hard for me to watch, like, especially my ab veins disappear, and the definition there kind of going away. So it did take a lot for me to mentally swap from prep, because I was in prep mode for like 3 months straight. So swapping from prep mode into like bulk mode or like rebound mode, in order to kind of accept that I'm going to lose the definition and gain some fat. It's going to happen. So we want to talk about, like, how do you swap mentally like that? And, what, Christoph might, keep in mind when he's, potentially changing plans one day when he cuts, and then when, I'm putting on size, and then how do I swap from, like, even when you're putting on size, you're getting strong, you're putting on size, you're getting bigger by the day, your clothes are getting smaller. Then how do you swap from that to losing fat, losing muscle, your strength goes down, your numbers go down, you're feeling sluggish, you're feeling hungry. Like, how do you swap to that as well? It's difficult both ways. So, I think it'd be a good conversation today about, what we use and what we've seen other people use as far as strategies, and kind of addressing those and kind of going from there is kind of the idea today.
Yeah, and then for those who don't know, I'm also coming off yet another injury, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the mental side of how to, keep yourself not motivated isn't the word, because we're motivated like 2% of the time now, but keeping yourself disciplined through the problems, and then also making sure that you stay in the gym, because it's very easy to just not be in the gym, or if you're not in the gym, finding ways to stay active when you're at home or whatever. So we'll touch on a couple different things. Paul, with your leaving prep and going into more of your size gaining, what's your current weight, and what's your like estimated goal for this bulk? Because you're on a bulk for like a little under a year, right?
Yeah, essentially the plan is putting on size for a year. That's just what coach said. Whether or not that means we're going to hit a show summer next year, I'm not sure. My prediction is an 8 week rebound, which would be about till middle of October roughly. So we're just about 6 weeks out from that roughly, and then so 2 weeks ago is my show. 6 weeks from now would be 8 weeks from the show. So roughly 6 weeks from now is when we're gonna stop the rebound. We're gonna do probably a 4 week PCT, post cycle therapy, just because we've been on pretty hard anabolics. I mean, not a lot, but we've been on it for about a year now. By the time I hit this PCT, so it'd be good to clean out. It's gonna suck. In PCT, I'm fine during PCT, but then afterwards it sucks, um, because you're so used to feeling enhanced. You're used to feeling like literally like a superhuman, that going back to normal feels like shit. So after PCT, probably like my guess is like 6 weeks off, just cleaning out, being clean, and then getting into a blast for probably three months, maybe 4 months at the most, and then getting into another prep is my guess. So realistically, I think kind of where I'm seeing this going is like starting my blast like middle to end of December, probably. And then that's when we're really put on some size. And then 3, 4 months from there is probably when we will pull back and start a prep for the next show. So we'll see. But yeah, the goal is really just size right now. And we're in rebound phase right now. So like I'm absorbing basically everything I take in. The week after the show, so last weigh in was last Saturday. So I'm weighing on Saturdays now. Now that we're in rebound, it's not imperative that I do weigh-ins every day or a couple times a week or whatever it is. So we do once a week weigh-ins now. And last Saturday I was 191.5 or something like that, I think. And then this week, I think I was 192.3. So I'm up like zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 pounds. So I put on a lot of water and a lot of weight right away, because I was so depleted. And now we're going in the direction that we want to go in. Zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 pounds a week is pretty good, considering that I'm not putting on a ton of fat or water anymore. And especially based off my arms and my legs, I'm holding definition pretty well, and I still got all of my abs. It's just not as defined as it was before. So that's kind of where we're at now. And that's the plan for the next year. So it's just putting on size ultimately, because that's my biggest critique from the judges. Besides conditioning, it's just I need to build a bigger back is really my biggest focus. I think for this rebound, for this bulk, is my back.
Yeah, so weight's kind of on the secondary. It's more so just overall size.
Yeah, I mean the weight scale, yes, it plays a role in the grand scheme of things, because it's not going to matter as much going from like weigh in to weigh in. It's more about like, okay, the past 8 weeks for the rebound, we've gone from this weight to this weight, and this is the photos we've done from the beginning to the end. It's like the bigger picture. That's more so what the weight does. The photos is more so what matters. With every single weigh in. Same with the show, like more so the photos than anything, and more so how you're looking. The mirror is really what matters. So, in the grand scheme of things, ideally, I want to gain like as little amount of weight per week while taking in as much food as possible. And the reason I say that is because whatever weight I do put on, if I'm gaining a little bit of weight, would be ideally muscle, and then keeping fat relatively low or potentially even losing fat at certain periods would be great. That way we can keep conditioning pretty low or pretty good, and then building muscle alongside that. So that way, when we start my prep next year, I'll be in a good conditioning spot to be ready for a prep where we don't have to push it super hard. We got 12 solid weeks to just kind of slowly deficit our way down, slowly increase cardio, and then, push it for like 2 to 3 weeks at the end, and then crush the show, like that's the goal right now. So really it's just the mirror, the photos. That's ultimately it at the end of the day. And I can see the size getting put on, I'm a lot bigger now than I was ready for my show, and I'm a lot more full. So that's something weird to me. I'm so used to being flat. It's weird feeling full.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, for this first little bit, like, yeah, it's gonna suck losing the definition and losing what you're used to seeing, but I think that give like a month or two and seeing the size build back in and filling out all your clothes again, I think that's really
Yeah.
gonna, change the mindset on this.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I've seen guys like so this is kind of what I wanted to talk about was like it was so fucking hard to put in so much effort and put on, so much stress and so much stress on my family and so much, effort in the gym and cardio and food and all of that to then start seeing the definition going away and in quotations, the effort and all the work going away. That was really hard for me for the first like probably like 10 days after the show. Um, and I was looking back and I know part of it too I know now thinking about it, retrospectively, is that if you guys see the video, I'll be posting the videos on YouTube soon. You'll see my tan last week, and then you'll see my tan this week, and it's like my tan's completely gone now at this point. I'm white as a ghost. So I know that part of gaining, part of my mindset was also that I was losing my tan because, my wife mentioned a quote she saw in the past, which was, if you can't tone it, tan it. And it's the reality. Tan really does like add so much to the way you look. So I am going to start tanning once I get paid again next month. So I'll get back into it and consistently tan and all of that. Get a good base coat and get some tan in there because that sucked too. Like losing the tan because your tan really does make you look a lot better. And it's not so much the tan the day of the show because it's super fucking dark. It was like one of my favorite days for the tan was a couple days after when I flew up to Massachusetts. Like there was a couple showers in, a little bit of a exfoliant, and it was just like it was a nice coat. It was pretty even, not super dark, not super light. It was nice. So like that sucked watching it go away too. Um, but yeah, it's a lot, and it's something to you know you got to deal with mentally because that's why like when guys say anabolics are addictive, it's not you're not addicted to them while you're on it. You realize how much you want it when you're off it. You know what I mean? It's like when you're on it, you feel fine, you feel normal. This is how you normally feel. And then you get off everything and it's like, holy fuck, I feel like shit. I want to get back on. And that's what's addictive about it. Same with like, prep and any phase you're in as far as the gym goes, is that it's addictive until you don't realize how addictive it is until you're done it. And prep really was addictive afterwards, after the fact, because I was seeing fat come off every single day. And the thing that would fascinate me was every day, every night when I go up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I'd put my hand on my stomach, and when I crunched to get up out of my bed, I'd feel the difference every single night in how much fat was there when I was doing like my crunch to get up. And that was a super cool feeling. And like a sense of accomplishment, where now that's going away. I feel more and more fat essentially there, more definition loss there every single night. But what's helped is that I see guys who essentially like I look up to in the industry and see where they're at now versus when, they were hitting a show or something, and it made me feel a lot better. I've seen pros where, they're not too far out from a show, like, a few months, 6 months maybe, and they went from being peeled, like just absolutely fucking diced on the pro stage to now having like no abs. It's like it made me feel a little bit better because even the pros are kind of going through the same thing that I am. So that helped, guys I compete against, putting on size and losing their definition made me feel a bit better too. Because everybody puts on fat differently. So it's like, yeah, my abs are going away quicker, but then like comparison's a thief of joy. But one of the things that I am pretty happy about is that my arms, my chest, and my legs have held definition really well. And I could see that in the differences against other people that I've competed against. It's like, okay, where are they at now? And I'm like, okay, I think based off where they were at when they were at my stage, my arms, my legs are a bit more defined, but then they have better abs than I do. So it's like, it's just the reality of the game is that you end up comparing and contrasting with other people and seeing how other people go through the phases, because what's so hard about it too, as far as comparison goes, is that everybody's different. And I put on fat in a very different way than other people do. And everybody puts on fat differently than anybody else does. But for me, it's it's very different than anybody else. And it's harder for me to like compare and contrast because I can't be like, oh, this person's just like me. So like, this is what I would look like at this stage or whatever. Like, cause there's not really anybody I could really say that like puts on fat the same way I do or anything like that. Cause it's like like I'll have love handles, and like lower belly fat, but then all of a sudden, like I got a spider web of veins through my calves at any given time. It's like, it's just weird. It's hard for me to find like something equivalent. So that was hard as well. And then just accepting that, like, even after multiple years of effort to step on stage, we're still not quite where we want to be and still not at the stage of winning shows. But, I've come to accept that more. But the thing that really got me through accepting putting on weight, putting on size and fat and all of that was a Rich Piana quote, which I heard it
It's
backwards
basically an
from.
8-hour arm workout.
Yeah, that's all I needed. That's it. Oh, busted. Eating a
This is
cookie
a
on the way to the
snack.
gym. This is a snack. This doesn't count. This is a yummy snack. That was it. That's all I needed. It's a 450 calorie cookie, not counting. So what the quote was from Rich was, um, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just getting over a cold here. The quote from Rich was, I don't care who you are, you leave your ego at the door, right? And he goes, I don't care if you're bigger or leaner than someone else, it doesn't make you better than who they are.
Yep.
And I heard that backwards, where it was like, that's true. Don't get me wrong, that is 100% true. But for me, I applied it backwards, where whenever I'd see someone bigger or leaner than me, I'd be like, what's the point? Why am I even trying? Like, why am I even going through this if they look better than me and they're going to beat me on stage? What's the point? So it's like, just because they're bigger or leaner than me doesn't necessarily mean, one, that they're better than me or anybody's better than anybody else, or two, doesn't mean that it negates any of the effort that I've put in myself, because everybody has, their own issues they got to deal with. And just because he might look bigger or leaner doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't have his own insecurities like I do, or have his own doubts or anything like that, So that's the way I heard that line. And it's like, and he also said, we're all in this shit together like a motherfucking family. And it's like I'm very competitive, but it is true. Like when I'm on stage and when I'm at the show, I'm here to beat you. I'm here to beat you. There's no in between. Like, we're not friends. I'll chat, but we're not friends. I'm trying to beat you on stage. But then after the show, we're in the gym, we're on that grind, then I truly do see us as like essentially a family, like we're all in this sport that we love that nobody else will ever understand and could never really understand. We can't really explain it to anybody. You just have to kind of get it. It's just like that also resonated with me too, is that it's like, I'm so competitive even off stage. It's like hard for me to accept that, hey, I mean, it's okay if somebody's better than you, or if it's okay if you're better than them, or it's okay if like they go to beat you on stage just because, and they put in less time and effort. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the effort that you put in. And some people will have more talent in certain things, and some people will have better genetics. But at the end of the day, it's what effort you put in, and you making the most of what cards you were dealt. So that, all of that kind of came flooding to me like Tuesday, Wednesday this week. And that's when I became like okay with putting on size and okay with the program right now. So that was a lot. That was a lot for me to recognize and to accept. It's a lot mentally.
So you can always tell when there's a Rich Piana quote because it's either super out of pocket or he's swearing in it. So even though it's
We're
like
all in
a
this shit
real deep quote,
together.
it's yeah, the the motherfucker part. Yeah, that was, you can always
Yeah.
tell it's Rich Piana.
Yeah. He was
um,
so ahead of his time. It's so sad we lost him. He 6, 7 years ago, he was saying shit that like applies to guys today. Like, we didn't understand it at the time, but like we get it now. You know what I mean? It sucks we lost
yeah,
him. Rest in peace, Rich
yeah,
Piana.
and another thing too, if the whole seeing people larger or seeing people bigger part, like if you're ever struggling with the mindset, we just have to look at the picture of Jay Cutler from whenever that was, and
Oh,
think about how he was
that helped me
feeling.
too.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that always helps. And I know you talked about like how you never miss it until it's gone, and like that's the whole grass is greener mindset. And like for me, coming off this injury, like I was in bed for you know a good week just because I had to keep my ankle elevated and whatnot. And like I still eat a ton, but I can't eat as much if I'm not in the gym, because like in the gym you expend all that energy and you want to eat more, like your body just craves it. So I'm not eating as much, and I mean it's still a lot, but it's not as much. And you were absolutely right, like you miss that feeling, even though in the moment you were like dreading it, or you're hating it, or like you're complaining
Mhm.
your way through it. Like you would get texts from me all the time about how I hate eating this much. Like I love eating a ton, but I hate eating this much. And now that I'm on this opposite side of things, I'm sitting here going, man, I wish I could have that, because I know the strength level in the gym and how long I can work out in the gym. Like yesterday was my first actual leg day back from injury, and I think I did a total of like 4 or 5 movements and just crashed and just couldn't do it anymore. And like that's just because my food intake just isn't the same, and I don't have that huge amount of energy. And you're right, it's just missing it now that it's gone. So but at the same time, when you miss it now that it's gone, it now gives you motivation to come back into it whenever that period comes around. Like when you hit your prep in a year or so from whatever, you're going to be so motivated and so disciplined to get into that it's going to be
Mhm.
even better than this past one. And you have the knowledge from before, which is invaluable in comparison to anything that somebody can tell you, because you know your body better than anybody else.
Yeah, that's the other thing I've been holding on to is like I have to keep in mind, we have to go through this. It's not like I can just perpetually be in prep. I can't just forever be in prep. It's not possible. It's like you have to go through these phases. And, bulk cutting is really at the end of the day, like the number one, plan for anybody looking to compete or anybody really looking to get bigger muscular wise, but also get lose fat. It's all about bulk cut. You can't really do like both at the same time. So it's like bulking now after prep. That was another thing I kept in mind was like, I'm going to put on size, I'm going to put on fat. But when I do start prep next year, I'm going to have way more knowledge on what to expect. We're going to have way more knowledge of what to put my body through. We're going to have way more knowledge on what my body responds to. So we're going to show up that much better. And I could look like my stage shot the morning of where I think I looked at my best was the morning of Excalibur. I could look the morning of Excalibur like 4 weeks out. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm holding on to is like I could look that much better way sooner, and then showing up to the show like just absolutely fucking diced. Ideally, is like kind of where like I was keeping my mind, and like at the same time, it's like Jay Cutler and Lee Priest was also a couple guys I was keeping in mind too. Is that no matter how diced or lean they were on stage, off stage and off season, which is most of the time, they were borderline fat. Like they were fucking massive dudes. And that's what I was holding on to is like, not necessarily that that's how my body responds to things, but they had to dirty bulk in order to put on the size. And I was holding on to that. Like that photo of Jay that you mentioned, like that's exactly what I was keeping in mind is like he put his body through that and he put his mind through that so that when he starts his cut or prep for the Olympia 12, 16 weeks out, whatever it was, he had the size that he needed. All he had to do was just trim the fat back. um so I was keeping that in mind, and I was like I'm kind of getting at this point like excited to kind of get a little buff uh on versus like being a prep, because like during prep I you probably remember too, like you tell me how much you're eating or what you're eating, whatever, and I'm like, fuck, I'm so jealous. Like
Yep.
I wish I could have that. And then all of a sudden afterwards I'm like, I don't even want any of this shit. I just want my definition back. I want to go back to the stage and all of that. But it's it's there's a there's got to be a quote for it, but it's like you really only ever, sometimes you just want what you can't have, you know what I mean? And that's this reality too. It's like sometimes you just want what you lost, and it's hard, but mentally you'll get through it and you'll end up on the other side. and then you would get motivated. So now I'm motivated to put on the size and put on the strength and all of that. And the gym's been a lot more fun now. Food's been a lot more enjoyable. Life in general is way better mentally. I'm just way better placed mentally than I was before. And quality of life is in a lot better place too. So all of that adds to it too, to try to keep me motivated. Like I was emotionally dead for like 3 months straight there. And I didn't realize it until I had that Five Guys meal the night before the show, and all of my emotions came rushing back. It was like a waterfall. It was just like everything that was pent up over the past 3 months just came flowing out of me. And like that's the other thing I keep in mind too, is that like I'm no longer emotionally just drained all the time. I have all the emotions I need. I have, the happiness, the bad side, like the sadness and stuff like that I'm supposed to have, and I have like the dopamine and all of that as well. So it's like I'm in a much better place mentally than I was during prep. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say, did Coach put Adderall back in?
I put it back in. I'll take it out for prep if that's what it calls for, but if we're in the off season and we're not prepping for a show, I'm putting it back in. It's basically like an antidepressant, essentially. It's like you're basically asking me to be depressed. And it's like
Yeah.
I'll do that going into a show to hit the show better. But when we're not trying to lose fat or keep off fat as much as possible, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put my mind through that or keep putting my mind through that. Because then, like, if you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, we're trying to keep off fat right now, but put on muscle. But also, when are we not doing that? Like when would I add it back in? There really is no point to be like, yeah, now is the time to add it back in. Let's put on some fat. You know what I mean? There's no time like that. I'm just gonna put it back in because my mind needs it. And being back at home, last week I was on it too. Couldn't really tell the difference too much because I wasn't in my element. I wasn't on my routine. I wasn't at home, nothing like that. So like my mind was kind of all over the place. But now that I'm back home and on a routine, working from my normal desk, hitting the gym my normal times, all of that, and taking my Adderall at the times I'm supposed to take it, my quality of life is so, so much better. I enjoy life just in general now. I enjoy doing things. So it really does make a big, big difference in my life.
And I think another thing too, like you're obviously in the side of things where you like creating content and like you have your socials and you post like either physique updates or
Yeah.
especially on like your Snapchat, you'll give different rants on like things that can be improved in the gym world and whatnot. And one of the things, like when we see that picture of Jay when he was in that extreme, I mean, I put extreme obesity, like that's where it
He was
got to.
huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was a big content creator too, but we never see any videos of him creating content in that size. So
Hmm.
when you go into this next period, like that's even like obviously I don't think either of us will ever do better than what Jay did, but I'm saying like you have the opportunity to like embrace it and still produce that kind of content while having that physique change, and you're in a different mindset. Like I'm willing to bet that during that time when he was in that size, he wouldn't make content. One, because he didn't want people seeing him like that, and two, he probably didn't like seeing himself like that either. But you have this opportunity to have people still see the physique, and you can embrace it and just allow yourselves to still make content while like building more size on and losing definition and just being very open and transparent about it.
Yeah, I think like you make a good point there because it is true. Like it's so hard to find like everybody, a lot of guys that I know, a lot of guys that I follow, they repost a lot of their
Hmm.
stage shots and their prep shots and shit like that because that's where they feel they look their best. But like if you think about it in Jay's perspective, like there wasn't really any social media then. There wasn't really like, cell phone cameras, nothing like that. So like the occasional photo, like that photo of him was taken definitely from like some sort of like either digital camera or like disposable camera or something like that. Like it was like something that they had to like do on purpose, right? It's not like I
Yeah.
just could whip out my phone and take it. Like they had to grab the camera, turn it on, turn it to flash, stuff like that. Like they had to take a second to actually do it. And on top of that, a lot of videos and stuff like that of Jay from that time were from professional cameramen and professional magazines and all of that. And they don't want to record him when he's looking like that. They want to record him when he's as close to the show as possible when he's looking his best. So yeah, he was able to hide it a bit more. And today, guys hide it. There's so many ways guys hide it now. Guys will wear pants even in the summer. They'll wear pants to the gym, go to an AC gym so they can wear pants. A lot of them wear hoodies, or just a big thing that you'll start to notice too is you'll have two different guys. I'm on the side of what kind of Jay had in mind, was like he always lifted with the least amount of clothes possible so that he could see, the muscles working and what he's working on and all of that. And I truly believe in that. Like, I want to be able to, like, even with arms, like I'm wearing a stringer or something like that, even on arms, when it doesn't really make much of a difference if we're a t-shirt or a stringer for arms. I'm in the mirror flexing, posing, stuff like that, watching the muscles work. But then you'll have guys where they wear pants for leg day, or like they wear a t-shirt on chest day, stuff like that, because they feel more so that they need to hide, their bulking side, or hide the lack of definition when they're not, in prep. And someone who does that is Sean Clarita, the giant killer. He is in sweatshirt and sweatpants pretty much every single time he fucking trains. Nobody actually knows what he looks like until like he basically steps on stage, which I can understand from his point of view, because he's trying to beat the bigger guys and he doesn't want anybody to be able to like try to beat him. But when you're talking about guys who aren't pro yet, or guys who are just pro and not going for the Olympia stage, stuff like that, they hide a lot of the definition just because of insecurities and all of that. And it's hard because it's like they keep reposting all their stage shit, when they look their best. But it's like, dude, you don't look like that most of the time. Most of the time, 9 months out of the year, you look like what you do now. You know what I mean? When they're wearing shirt and sweatpants in the gym. It's like that. This is how you look most of the time. Why not show that too? So like that's my thing too, is like, now that you mentioned it, I will keep posting, as I put on size and all of that, and put on fat and everything, because most of the time I will have fat on me, way more so than prep. So got to keep that side going, at least, just to be transparent and show the reality of what bodybuilding really is.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like what gives you a leg up mentally, at least. And like that's why I preface, like, neither of us will ever probably attain what he did physically, but mentally you probably have the leg up in that situation. Um, and as time progresses and you get more like advanced and deeper into your career, there is probably going to be the opportunities of other photographers coming in, or videographers coming in and doing work with you, like in like your peak form, and then for the whole off season your cameraman is yourself because they won't
Yeah.
even touch you.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great if people wanted to photograph or video me or something like that. It'd be great. But one of my dreams is to be on like Flex magazine, or like Muscle and Fitness or something, like to be the cover one day. That's one of my dreams. It's a stupid dream now because not many people read magazines.
I was
But
going to
I
say
grew up.
magazines in like 10 years from now, well, I'll be surprised if people even know what they are.
Yeah, I grew up reading, like, or like seeing those in the bathroom and stuff like that at home, like, because that's what my dad would read before, like, before there was like digital books and stuff like that. He would read those magazines,
Yep.
when he was going to the bathroom. So it's like I've always kind of associated, like, you really made it if you were on one of those magazines. And that was a big goal for a lot of guys back in the day, like Jay, Dorian Yates, Lee Priest, Ronnie Coleman, all those guys. Like, they had a goal of being on those magazine covers. So I mean, I would love to be on one day. That'd be great.
Well, that was also the primary form of
Yeah,
basically social media. So nowadays, it's more like becoming like I know it gets oversaturated and kind of cliched, but now it's kind of like being a cover athlete or a like brand ambassador, like a head one. Is That's kind of like the new magazine, is just in terms of
yeah,
viewership and getting your own image and brand out there. Like, I mean, I know we talk about Redcon all the time, but like getting like Cbum is with no, it's not Rise. It
it's
is Rise.
Raw. No, it's
Raw.
Raw.
That's what
He but
Raw.
he does own part of it. He is one of the three owners now.
Yeah.
He bought ownership in it.
but that's my point. Like you get like brand deals now, and that's kind of where
Yeah.
the like there were brand deals before, but that wasn't where the publicity was. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you would just do it to kind of increase your portfolio and have a bigger business side of things. But now that's actually shifted to like where the actual publicity is, because like
Hmm.
the amount of people who know bodybuilder names just based off of products that they see on the shelves is probably a lot higher than it was way back when, like in like 90s when the magazine was the big thing. um so that'll be, I mean, of course, if you make the magazine, that's great, but the future is probably shifting too with it as we progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the big thing right now, everybody's trying to do. I mean, it's more so slowed down in the past few years. Is everybody's trying to get sponsored and like endorsed and all of that. The thing is when you have like the true money behind fitness and all of that is social media now, is less so competing. It used to be about competing. It used to be whoever was best on stage, and that's who got all the attention. Now, so it's more so social media, and there's a lot of pressure on guys who look a certain way. It's like that's why like David Lade has looked the same for the past like fucking 6 years, because he has this look, he has his brand, his brand image, and that's his physique. So you have to look, he basically looks the same because that's what built up his fame. So why change that? There's not many guys who built up a platform based off their look and then changed their look. There have been a few. There's one off, I can't remember there's one of the guys who used to train in Jersey, I think with David Lade. I forget, Connor, or is it Derek, or I forget. He's a client of someone's. It might have been Terrence Ruffins at one point. I forget. Anyways, the point is, when you have a brand image as your physique and people know you by that physique, you're not going to want to change it. And that's another problem with social media. It's a lot of pressure to keep that going. And even in bodybuilding, and I don't have many followers at all on Instagram. I got a little over 100. That's not a lot. That's fucking nothing. But I always feel that I want to post when I look the best. And I don't want to backtrack at all. But that's also part of like what I've been trying to post as well, is that like you're gonna put on size and you're gonna gain size and all of that. And I just can't stand it when guys will post stage shots, 10 times over 6 months. It's like, dude, you hit the shit 6 months ago. Like you're nowhere near this level of conditioning. And on top of that, you've gained 5 pounds of muscle since then. Like you're a completely different size. Like why not post where you're at now? Embrace the bulk, embrace the gaining of fat, because that's what your body needs. Your body needs that in order to put on the size. And like that's the other thing too, is like when it's a harder problem coming off of bulk than it is coming off of prep, but it's enjoyable to see the strength going up. It's enjoyable for me to see my energy levels going up. Like I'm destroying my logbook this week. Just fucking mutilated it. It's night and day, my strength levels. And it's like on top of just adding weight, it's also like the reps just keep coming. They don't stop. I'll be lifting like the same weight, for instance, where before I failed at 10, I'll hit 10 and I'm like, damn, this is heavy. But then I get like four more, like no problem. It just keeps coming. Coming off a bulk, that's very difficult to deal with because your strength goes away. All the weight you've built up as far as lifting goes away when you start prep and when you start a cut. So like that's difficult in that aspect where, you're benching, let's say like, 275 or something for 8. And then all of a sudden, 4 weeks into prep, you're like barely doing 225 for 8. And it's like, well, I was destroying this before. Like this is my warm up before. What the fuck's going on? And, that's hard to deal with on the opposite end. That's one of the harder mental battles when you're doing that. And then also on top of that, when you go from ideally you don't cold turkey anything, but when you're going from a bulk to a cut or a prep, it takes a couple of weeks to kind of transition. But when you're transition, you're like, man, I really just took being, eating a lot of food for granted. And I know that that's going to be the reality for you, Stoph, when you go to do your cut one day. You're going to be like, fuck, I took that for granted. I'm like, yeah, welcome to the game, bro. You're going to be hungry all the time.
Hmm.
And Chewy's in prep now for his nationals in December, and he's 2 weeks in. He said something about being hungry, and I'm like, yeah, dude, it's perpetual hungerness. Like you're always hungry. There's never your body always wants food. Like there's never like when you're bulking and you're force feeding and stuff. Like there's times where you just don't want to even look at food or think about food. You're gonna throw the fuck up. You know, if you have like a good cheat meal, like the day after my show, I just didn't even want to think about food. I had so much fucking food. I was like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to look at it. Nothing. When you're in prep and you're in a cut and you're hungry, it's the opposite. All you do is think about food because you always want food. And you're like, fuck, I take it for granted how much I was eating before and how much energy I had and how much little food I wanted. You know, if you're eating enough where you have to force feed, you don't want anything besides what's on your plan because you have to force feed it, you know? So it's all just a mental game. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned a really good point about the social media, like the mental battle that comes with that, because like that's where the publicity is, and focusing on, you know, making sure you produce content that people want to see, so not ever posting bulk stuff. Or the point that I'm going to make is people who just never, like you mentioned, people who never change their physique, but there's people who like year round, like, I mean, this is one of the things that probably took out Joe Aesthetics, because he stayed that crazy lean year round, and
Yeah.
that's just not possible. Like he was probably what, like 3-4% body fat the entire year. Like
Mm-hmm.
he had permanent striations, permanent. I mean, I know his alien gains thing is because of the electrolyte deficiency, but like the being able to do that, like you can't do that if you have bulk size on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then like the guys like, I mean, I know you don't like Eubanks. Eubanks stays his size. He's been in his size, like I've never seen him in anything but that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like this
He's looked the same.
perfect
Yeah.
physique, yeah. And then Noel Diesel, like he's this massive bodybuilder. He's got so much size, and I've never seen him bigger or smaller. Like like there's just these guys who, because of the publicity and the image they've created, like they must mentally feel like they can't change, and that's got to be grueling in itself.
I think for Noel, I think he's the only one that kind of is a little separate because his content, yes, it did kind of rely on him being big, but it wasn't because of him being big. It was the message that he was portraying. A lot of time when there was videos of him when he was getting big, and it was all those like TikToks and YouTube shorts and shit that he was putting out. He was wearing a stringer and it was like shoulders up, you know? So like you could tell he was big. And then also I think at the same time, he doesn't need to change his physique too much because he's also not competing anymore. I think he was at one point competing, and especially at his size, there's no point of being that big if you're not competing. So I think he's done competing, and that's also why he hasn't really changed too much. And like Jay Cutler is kind of in the same place. Like he's kind of stayed the same over the past like decade, and he's just been trying to. I think he's just kind of trying to hold on to as much muscle and keep off as much fat as possible over the past decade, just to maintain at his age. But he still looks phenomenal for his age. Jay does at least.
He could clean the
So
floor with like most young guys.
yeah, he looks great. He still has abs, all that. He's still fucking huge. So like that's part of it for them at least is just maintaining because they've gotten to the point where they're kind of were at their peak. So they're like, all right, let's just kind of like stay here as much as we can. And that's my goal too, is like when I go to retire one day from bodybuilding, my goal isn't to just lose all my size ideally. Like I want to be able to hold on to as much as I can. Like I'll still train, I'll still eat, all of that. I just won't compete anymore. I won't put my body through that. So it'll still be, oh, excuse me. It'll still be part of who I am, it'll still be part of my lifestyle, but I just won't put my body through prep or anything anymore when I do retire from competing one day. So I think that's kind of where Noel's at. He's kind of like, let's just try to hold on to this as long as I possibly can. And once it gets to the point where I have to like, I'm getting diminishing returns and how much effort I put in just to maintain it, then I'll start accepting that there's some loss there. And Dorian Yates kind of had to go through that where he was so massive, and then now he's like almost like a normal guy, basically. Like he's still in great shape for his age, but if you like, I wouldn't necessarily believe you if you told me he was one of the best Olympians of all time. Looking at his physique now, it's just because of his age. And he had to kind of accept, like right after he retired, like he kind of lost like all of his size because he was just done. He was done doing it. And he was talking about that, I think, on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he just kind of like accepted it and was just like, this is the reality of the situation. You know, I pushed my body hard enough as it is. It's now time to just focus on just living longevity and living for my family. And I think that's also going to be another motivator too down the road, is that um, I don't want to like have to put myself through so much shit and lose years off my life if I don't get to watch my grandkids, you know, get married or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to be there for that. So longevity is also a goal of mine. That's why this isn't forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of just adding on to the mental side of things as far as mindset behind competing and all of that.
Yeah, and then I mean, there's also the added mindset too, and added pressure for anybody who makes it, Olympia big and doesn't, cold turkey and leave the game right away, like for the guest appearances that happen. Because like if someone
Yeah,
pays you like $10,000-15,000 to come to a guest appearance, even if it's off season, you have to bring in something that people will actually like enjoy seeing. Like if Jay, for example, brought in that the physique of him in that picture, he would have been like they would have get taken the money back. They would not have paid
I
ten
would have
thousand
loved to
dollars
see
for that.
that. I
No,
want to
I
see
and
fucking massive J.
I agree, but I think in the moment nobody would have wanted to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they want to see Lean J. They want to see Olympia J. Yeah,
Yeah, like if it's a fitness convention and they're bringing in, because Jay also was super involved with his brands, like even when he was competing. So like if it was like some
yeah,
kind of function where his brand is making a big like either sponsorship or some kind of like appearance at this event, he needs to bring in some kind of a package that is representative of that brand, and that applies for anybody who gets these guest appearances. Like I'm blanking on the guy's name, but it was at Jay's birthday this past month or 2 months ago, and he came in and did that guest posing with alongside Jay. I don't know if you saw this video, but
I had to look it up.
there was it was one of the guys from Generation Iron. I'm blanking on his name real bad though, but he brought in like you can tell he was in off season form, but he still had a great package that he brought, and he was up
There
on
was
stage, and
Phil
I'm
Heath and Regan Grimes at
Regan
a
Grimes. That's who I was talking about.
yeah.
Yeah,
This is yeah. So this guy posted about it. Yeah. So Regan Grimes. Yeah, that's fucking
yeah.
sick.
But
I
so
would
my
have killed
point
for that.
being, yeah, and my point being is that he isn't in like Olympia form right now, and he's clearly in off season form. Like you can tell, he still looks great, but he's not like peak physique or anything like that.
Right.
But you have to bring in some kind of a good look if you're doing these guest things, and that added pressure mentally must be overwhelming, because you're like, I just want to have a bulk. I just want to get off of this and start performing better in the gym, because with a bulk you perform better in the gym, and like just wanting to do that but can't do it because of these added pressures.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is there's very few guys whose bodies agree with a dirty bulk like that. Jay was the exception. That's why he spent so much money as he did on food, and that's been still going viral to this day. Where he spent 50. He came out and he said he spent 50 grand a year on food, and a big reason of that is because he was getting fast food, like literally McDonald's, like every other day, and just a fucking gigantic meal. Because when you're bulking, like I can attest to this firsthand, when you're bulking and you eat more food, this is just reality, is that your stomach stretches out, right? Your stomach stretches out so that it can take in more food. That's why I tell you it sucks to force feed, but the more you force feed, the less you have to force feed later, because your stomach will stretch, right? It's going to stretch, it's going to adapt to the food that you have to take in, and you're going to get used to it. So in prep, your stomach shrinks because you have such a little amount of food. Your body gets used to that and therefore allows less food to be more filling. So for Jay, when he was in his peak bulk, when he was getting these McDonald's cheat meals, he'd load up on tons of fucking food because his stomach can hold it. His body can hold it and utilize it. So like that was a big part of like what his money was spent on for food, was just simply McDonald's or something like that. Cheat meals. Um, so to add even more to what you were saying, Guest posing, yeah, that's you got a good point there. There a lot of bodybuilders do, because they're, especially men's open guys, a lot of their muscle bellies are so large, even if they put on a lot of fat, they still look lean. Eddie Hall is kind of an example of that with his abs. His ab wall is just so fucking massive. Even with all the fat that he has, he still has abs. It's not
Well,
defined
Eddie
abs.
Eddie Hall is making an O appearance this year. We all know that.
Eddie Hall has really gone downhill. Let's just say that.
His
But
content is so funny though. I
yeah,
die every time.
he does make some comedic posts. I did see this. So this Instagram I follow, Monday Iron. I've been following since like he was like 1,000 followers. Like I've been following for a long time. He posted about how so like Jay went and saw, like, did you see that like Brian Shaw wax figure thing?
I did, and Eddie Hall
So
pulled down the pants.
yeah, I think so. Monday Iron makes some memes, but then he also has like a weekly video where he talks about, it's one guy, he's somewhere around our age. He makes a weekly video about like current stuff going on in the industry. It's like 15 minutes long and it's a newsletter too. So like he has like this newsletter, this weekly newsletter. And he had a weekly newsletter where he talked about how he posted that photo. It was like a video, but he screenshotted it and it was like Eddie was pointing at the crotch of Brian Shaw because there's nothing there. You know, it's a wax figurine, they don't put junk on it.
Did it
And
get flagged
he
for
made a meme
pornography?
about it. Yes, dude. And you know who flagged it was Eddie. He fucking reported it. I'm like, dude, calm down. Like, Eddie, what the fuck? You're the one who did it and you posted it too. Why are you flagging him for it? So I'm just like, that's
Yeah.
fucking stupid. But anyways, um so when these guys do guest poses, Hunter Labrada is one that does a lot of guest posing. A lot of people want Hunter Labrada to do guest posing. Big Ramy does a lot of guest posing. There are a few different bodybuilders that do a lot of guest posing and they charge out the fucking ass for it too. I think I think the rumor was like 10 grand or something for Hunter Labrada to do guest posing. And I'm sure that he also requires them to pay for like expenses too. Like if you
Yeah,
want me to
like
guest pose
lodging,
at,
yeah.
yeah, if you want me to fly out to fucking California to do posing for you, like pay for my flight, my hotel. I'll pay for my food. It's part of my plan anyways. I'll pay for my food, but like at least pay for like me coming out there because you want me to come out there. You know, like I think that's kind of part of it. And then also like actually stepping on the stage. I think so. I think they paid him like 10 grand. I don't know, but whatever. Anyways, he stepped on the stage and like he still looked like, even on the in the off season, he still looks pretty lean. Hunter Labrada is pretty good at keeping his definition in check. So he still looks lean on stage. There was an issue where one of the guest poses he did, when you get the tan, you don't want to sweat or anything. You don't want any water touching it. It'll leak, like it like the tan literally comes off,
Yeah.
and he started sweating and it started dripping. So people are like, "What's going on? What's happening? Like, why is he like literally melting? Like, what's happening? Is this something to do with steroids? Blah blah blah." Nick Strength and Power is like, "Dude, it's literally just tanning spray." Like he posted a video. He's like, "It's just tanning spray. It happens." They put
If
on a
you
coat that morning, and he just was sweating when he was doing posing. That's it.
if you ever want a really, really good example of what bleeding, like the tan bleeding looks like, look up the pictures of Rudy Giuliani, uh, his tan dye coming out of his head. That's the
Let me
best
see.
example I can think of that. It literally
Yeah,
looks like a
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it literally drips. Yeah, and it comes off. That's fucking gross.
Yeah, because that's
That
it's in his
example is
hair, and that's
gross.
what's coming out.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
the most, like, blatant, exaggerated example you can give. That's kinda my point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it just, I don't know. The mindset behind that too can play a role. You got a point there. I didn't think about that, but yeah, Big Ramy puts on some size, puts on some fat, and he fucking looks
Big
massive in the off season.
No, Big Ramy brings a big package to the O, and that's what kills him half the time.
Yeah, he just doesn't come in defined.
Yeah.
Is his problem. He comes in too big. It's like, dude,
There's a reason his name's Big Ramy, like, big, like, it for a reason, like, he's coming in big regardless of whether it's looking good or not.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, like looking at his fucking guest posing, he looks massive. But I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
also that's his thing. Like, I can't even imagine what that's like being called like your nickname is big whatever because you're just that massive, and then
Yeah.
you got to see like an actual like pro open bodybuilder because people don't realize how fucking massive these guys are. They are ginormous. There's a guy who competed at Texas Pro. Was it his first pro show, I think, or like his first show in a couple of years because he was putting on size for a while. And he came back and he got fifth, and then his first pro show back, which is pretty sick. That's a pretty good placing for his first show back, or at least his first pro show. I don't know. It's something special. And I saw him at the seminar um, with what's his name? Oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank on it?
It's the one you went to like 6 months ago,
Steve
right?
Weinberger.
Yeah.
What? Yeah,
Weinberger, you got it.
yeah, Steve Weinberger. So at that seminar, he was doing the men's. Him and one other guy were doing the men's open posing, and this dude was fucking massive.
I
He got
remember you
fifth.
texting me about that.
Yeah, like like I didn't realize how big men's open dudes are until that. So it's like to be called Big Rami and to be known as big among the men's open
Yeah.
competitors. I want to see him in person because he's got to be fucking enormous. Like that's ludicrous because this guy got fifth and lost, obviously. So like to think that there's guys who look big against him, it just blows my fucking mind.
His legs are the
But
size of our torso.
literally though, and like, did you see that photo I posted of James Hollingshead when he was 18? I think we talked about that last week, maybe. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, off the top of my
I don't
head, I
know if
don't
you saw. I
remember, but
shared it. Okay, so James Hollingshead posted a photo when he was. We did talk about it. I remember mentioning this when he was 18, and he was fucking massive for an 18-year-old. Like literally like me, like in prep. Like if I got to like went back to prep and took a similar photo to him, we would look very similar. And he's 7 years younger than me in that photo. Like that's how you know a dude's meant for men's open when they can get fucking massive at 17, 18 years old and just do nothing but put on muscle.
oh
That's how you
yeah,
know you're meant for it. Um, that's why I gave up on men's open. I'm like, I'm just not built for it. I just don't put on muscle like crazy. But yeah, so mentally, there's a lot of pressure. And really, what I wanted to just talk about today was just like how to get through it and how to transition mentally from one phase to the next because there are multiple phases you kind of go through. And for those involved with anabolics, PCT is interesting because PCT you feel normal, your libido is through the fucking roof. Um, you feel normal for the most part, but then when you come off, you feel like shit, and like that's hard mentally to accept. You feel sluggish. You just have no energy for shit, whatever, and you're just gaining fat. You're not making any progress in the gym. You're just maintaining for the most part. So like when I do come off everything for however long we're doing that, it's gonna be like a maintenance phase, like where we just try to maintain as much as possible. Don't put on muscle, don't put on fat, nothing. Just keep it the same. Just clean out, get some blood work, stuff like that. Then get into a blast and put on some size, which timing wise is actually going to be fucking sick because the holidays is when I'll be starting all that. So like I'll be able to really probably enjoy the holidays. Like
yeah.
Thanksgiving, I'll probably be able to have whatever I want during Thanksgiving. Christmas, same thing. So that's going to be sick. And then I'll still be able to bulk through like winter, and then I'll start my prep and look good for summer, which is going to be sick. So like timing wise, I prefer this type of timing versus any other. I don't want to be bulking through summer. Ideally, most shows take place during the spring, summer, and like beginning of fall, anyways. So it's not like most guys bulk through the summer for the most part, anyways. If you're competing, that is. So I want to look good for the summer. So
I was
this
gonna say
timing
that's
all makes
that's the
sense.
mental side of thing where in the
Yeah.
summer you want to look your best because most of us during the summer have our shirts off. Like,
Yeah. There are times where guys would be like, they'll talk about how bulking in the summer sucks. Like I have to do it, but it sucks because I never want to take off my shirt. But this is what I got to do to compete. If
yeah,
they got to put size on for 2 months or 2 years or something, during the summer, they might do like a recomp. Some guys will do like a recomp, like 8 to 12 weeks where it's not like a prep, but they do a cut so that they can trim the fat down and then put more size on. But that's about it. That's the extent of it. And some guys just really struggle getting through summer because of that. It's hard for a lot of guys, but that's the name of the game.
Yep. And, just staying afloat, that's all it is. Like, that's why having that good support system and not
Yeah.
comparing, like the ego, like that's huge. Like, not comparing because everybody's going through the different phases. Like, that's just a big thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's comparison's a thief of joy, and you just got to be proud of where you're at and respect yourself and be proud of what you've accomplished in the past and not let anybody else's physique or where they're at diminish where you're at, because you might be comparing yourself to a guy who's got 10 years on you. I lost my show to a guy who's got 13 years on me, and I'll be damned if I'm not fucking pro and destroying competition by the time I'm his age. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so you gotta be proud of where you're at. And most likely you got plenty of time. Almost anybody's got plenty of time to get to where they want to go. So you just gotta embrace that. And if you need to shift your mind to accept something like I had to, then you'll get through it. You just gotta find that thing that clicks. And for me, it was that one quote from Rich. It just, for some reason, it just fucking clicked, and that's all I needed.
Yep.
But we all need something, and that's what it was for me.
Hell yeah, man.
Keep pushing.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this one up here. We're gonna be doing more episodes like this, but you'll be hearing from us in the future.
Yep. Thanks guys for listening. We'll see you later.
Peace.